Hello again, vinyl community. This is Matt, and today I want to take a look at some records that are pretty common in thrift stores, at least in Southern California, but records that are actually not bad and worth getting if you can get them for a cheap price. So the idea for this was really inspired by a video I posted on channel for 33 RPM, where he talked about sort of $1 or $2 thrift store records, some of which I agreed with, some of which I didn't, but he's in Canada, so I don't know if there's a different kind of market for some of the records up there. Like he talked about getting Neil Young Harvest for a couple of dollars, which I've never seen. In fact, I've never even seen it in a thrift store, let alone for $2. But there are quite a few records that I think, at least for me, I found a lot of in Southern California, and in different thrift stores and so on. So we'll start going through them. And again, these are all records that I found multiple times in thrift stores, and so I think you'll have a good chance of finding them too. Okay, let's start off with the Moody Blues, Days of Future Past. This, of course, is a classic album from the 60s. It contains the classic Nights in White Satin on it. This is kind of funny because I went a long time without being able to find this. And when I did find it, I found it twice in the same day, two different thrift stores. It was kind of crazy. And I think I have seen it at least one other time since. If you can find a good copy, it's definitely worth getting. It's on the London Durham label, as you can see here. There were at least two different pressings of it, I think. Probably more since then, but yeah, definitely go ahead and pick it up if you can get it for a couple of dollars. It's the Moody Blues. It's a good album, absolutely. Next up is a lady whose name I'm going to mispronounce, I'm sure, but Maria Moldauer. Anyway, this is a pretty good album. I have seen it a number of times in thrift stores. You can also get it for cheap in record stores too. And it does contain Midnight at the Oasis, which is a very nice sort of folky, soft rock sort of song. That song, of course, was covered by the Brand New Heavies, British band, in 1994 as well. So yeah, go ahead and pick it up if you can find it. Again, all of these, if you can get them for a couple of bucks, it's worth thinking about. Excuse me. Next up, Leo Sayer, Endless Flight. I've seen this album multiple times. I believe it won Grammy for Album of the Year, I want to say 1980, beating out The Wall by Pink Floyd, which is kind of a shock. It does contain You Make Me Feel Like Dancing and When I Need You on it. So, two good songs. And again, if you can get it cheap, go ahead. I think I got this for literally 25 cents at a thrift store. Okay, next up we have Loggins and Messina, Sitting In. This actually isn't a bad record. You'll see a lot of Loggins and Messina stuff around very quickly once you start getting into the thrifting side and the crate digging where it comes to vinyl. Loggins and Messina are kind of a staple of a lot of thrift stores. This is arguably the best album. Of course, it's a matter of taste. But again, if you get it cheap, what the heck. Okay, next up, The Best of Gordon Lightfoot. I have a few of his albums. I picked this one up because I'm pretty sure I have seen this a couple of times in thrift stores. I know for sure that I've seen various other Gordon Lightfoot albums a bunch of times. He's pretty common in thrift store record sections. Some of his stuff's really good. I think his best album is Sundown, which I do have, although I don't think I got it at a thrift store. I think I either bought it online or got it at a record store. But The Best of Gordon Lightfoot, you will see occasionally. Gord's Gold is another hits album of his you might see sometimes too. He's got a lot of really good songs. Okay, next up, kind of iconic live album, Frampton Comes Alive. Of course, this is Peter Frampton, and this is a terrific album. I mean, it's really great. If I was gonna say if you can find it, but the chances are you will find it if you go thrifting often enough and for long enough. You're gonna come across it sooner or later. This album in particular tends to suffer from a lot of ring wear. My copy here does have some that you can see along the edges. I'm not sure I've ever seen a copy of this that didn't have a little bit of ring wear, but it has kind of the iconic version of Do You Feel Like We Do? Of course, just amazing, amazing rock song, great guitar solos in it. So I would definitely recommend this. And a few of these I'd make an exception for. I said, don't pay more than a couple of bucks. Fountain Comes Alive is a really terrific album. So I would probably pay a little bit more than that. It is a double album too. Okay, next up, this one might be a little controversial, but we'll see. Pablo Cruise, A Place in the Sun. Pablo Cruise are, again, a little bit of a staple of any self-respecting thrift store. You'll come across them often. But they're not bad. They're kind of one of these bands, one of these artists that got a little bit of a bad rep, partly because you just seem to find them all over the place, and they're always being discounted. You find them in the bargain bins in record stores. But if you actually give them a listen, they're really okay. And if you can find A Place in the Sun or one or two other albums for $1 or $2, why not? It's decent soft rock music. It really isn't bad at all. Okay, next up, a little bit of a change. Hooked on Classics. Again, I found this several times in thrift stores. I've even bought it for friends of mine because I found it so often, and it's pretty good. You don't have to be super into classical music to buy it, which I'm not. I'm really not that much into classical music. I have some stuff, but not a whole ton of it. And it's classical music set to a beat, and came out in the early 80s. I think, I want to say like 81, yeah, 1981. And it sounds great. It's got a good beat to it. You get to hear a bunch of classical music, all kind of rolled into one track at a time. Lots of different clips combined. Again, $1 or $2, what the heck? It's good. Alright, next up, back to the kind of classic rock. Styx, Pieces of 8. Again, I found this a few times in thrift stores. It's a decent album. I think it has Renegade on it. I think I'm right in saying that, but let's double check in case I'm wrong. Yes, it does indeed have Renegade on the B-side. This is another album that seems to consistently suffer with ring wear. I'm fortunate enough to have a copy that really doesn't, at least not on the front. There is a little bit on the back. If you can find it, and it's pretty cheap, go ahead and buy it. It's a great rock album. Alright, next up we have the Carpenters singles, 1969 to 73. Once again, as with all these, I found this more than once, but it's not bad. I'm not a huge Carpenters fan. I find their songs pleasant, but not really something I'd want to sit and listen to all day, but occasionally a Carpenters song's okay, I guess. But this has a lot of the hits on it, a lot of the earlier hits on it, and it's good. It really is. If you can find it in good condition. It's got Rainy Days and Mondays on it. We've only just begun. Bunch of other good stuff. Yeah. Okay, next up we have another thrift store staple, Dan Fogelberg. If I had a $1 for every time I've come across a Dan Fogelberg record, I'd probably be a pretty rich man. But the Souvenirs album is not bad at all. It's really quite reasonable. It has, well, two songs on it that I really like. One is Part of the Plan, which is the lead track, and it also has There's a Place in the World for a Gambler, which is the final track on the album, and it's a lovely song. It's really nice acoustic arrangement to it, nice tune to it. Yeah, it's pretty good. Next up, The Best of Bread. Again, it's really hard to knock this too much, because whether you like bread or not, you'll probably you'll probably like at least one or two of the tracks on here. And it's got a number of the earlier hits on it. There is a second greatest album too that I also have. It's got Make It With You, Everything I Own, and actually Make It With You is a really nice song. My favorite Bread song, actually. Next up we have Boz Scaggs, Silk Degrees. A real bargain bin staple, real thrift store staple. I've come across it a number of times, but it's good. It really is. It's a really really solid record. It has Lido Shuffle on it. It has Lowdown, which is my personal favorite track of his, and it's good. This is I think this is not a first pressing because it has the Gold Record Award sticker on it. It's probably like a slightly later pressing on Columbia. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Against the Wind. Of course, this has the title track on it, which to me is just a beautiful, amazing song. I'm a big fan of Against the Wind, the song. It sounds very different on vinyl compared to digital in my experience. Put some headphones on, close your eyes, and just listen to Against the Wind. It's really good. And of course, it was famously featured in Forrest Gump as well, when I think during one of his running scenes. This particular copy that I have is still in the shrink with the hype sticker, which is nice. But I've had this album at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, and I keep buying kind of upgrade copies gradually as I find them. I've given I think 2 copies away to friends. I had another copy that I traded in or gave away one time. So you'll come across it a lot. Okay, next up we have Billy Joel. I picked out 52nd Street because this is one of the most common Billy Joel albums that you'll come across. But really, you can't go wrong with any Billy Joel album. He's just good. You know what you're going to get with him. He's always solid. And 52nd Street is, for me, definitely one of the albums of his that I come across the most. And yeah, it's good stuff. It's got Honesty on it. It's got My Life on it. If you find it, snap it up. Okay, next up, we've got a kind of twofer right here. Excuse me. Atlanta Rhythm section. Champagne Jam and a Rock and Roll Alternative. And I'll just show both these albums. Here's a Rock and Roll Alternative. Here is Champagne Jam. There's a fair chance you'll find one or both of these at some point when you're thrifting. And they're both solid albums. They're really not bad at all. If you like that sort of 70s soft rock, kind of sound, then go ahead and pick them up. They've got a little bit more going on than soft rock, actually, but yeah. Okay, next up, America Greatest Hits. Again, you're likely to come across this multiple times. I really like America, and in fact, Sister Golden Hair is one of my favorite songs ever, certainly of the 70s and maybe of all time. It has A Horse With No Name on it, Ventura Highway, a bunch of their big hits. And this was kind of a funny one for me because I had a copy of it, but the record was in really nice condition, but the sleeve was completely beat up. It had water damage. It was really bad. And then I found this at a record store. I think it was $3, and I bought it just to have a replacement sleeve. And in fact, the record was not quite as good as the one I already had, so I kept the record itself, switched out the sleeve, and yeah, seriously recommend this if you can get it. Okay, next up, Al Stewart, Year of the Cat. Another bargain bin staple, but it's worth getting on the cheap just for the title track, Year of the Cat. It's a really terrific 70s soft rock track. To be honest with you, I haven't listened much to the rest of the album. I think I've listened to a couple of the other tracks. But yeah, again, it's worth getting just for Year of the Cat, and it's worth getting for that cover. I mean, look at that. Isn't that cool? Okay, The Fifth Dimension, The Age of Aquarius. I think I got this maybe 6 months ago. I know I've seen it at least once, if not twice, since then. out in the wild in thrift stores. Again, it's a sort of a classic early sort of psych rock, I guess. It's worth getting just for the title track Aquarius / Let the Sun Shine In. Okay, next we have Olivia Newton-John's Greatest Hits. This one I was a little bit on the fence about including in this video, to be honest with you, because I'm not a huge Olivia Newton-John fan, but I have come across this multiple times, and it's not bad. You know, it's really okay. This particular one's actually signed, which I don't think I knew when I bought it. I just opened the gatefold and it was signed in the middle to someone. I doubt that makes it rare. She probably signed hundreds, if not thousands, of these back in the day. But yeah, Olivia Newton-John's Greatest Hits. Yeah, it's okay. Next up we have Best of the Doobies. I have found other Doobie Brothers albums out in the wild too, several times. But this is the one I've come across the most, the Greatest Hits. And it's good. Good. It's got Long Train Running on it. It's got It Keeps You Running. Let's see, what else does it have on it? Oh, listen to the music. I mean, it must have, really. If you can get it for a couple of dollars, absolutely, it's a bargain. Okay, Christopher Cross, self-titled album. I kind of like the cover with the flamingo. It's kind of cool. And now that I think about it, I'm thinking that maybe this got Album of the Year in 1980 and beat out The Wall by Pink Floyd. It is dated 1979. I'm going to have to look that up. I know one of them did. Either Christopher Cross or Leo Sayer, one of the two. And by the way, this has both Sailing and Ride Like the Wind on it. And I think it's well worth owning. It's a good album. Okay, next up we have Chicago's Greatest Hits. It's an earlier Greatest Hits album. It's from the mid-70s, like 75 or something, I think. Yeah, I think it's from 75. So, you know, it's not going to have any of the 80s stuff or anything from that kind of little resurgence that they had in the 80s. But it's still really good. It's worth having. Okay, this one, again, I wasn't too sure about including, but John Denver's Greatest Hits. I like a couple of his songs. I do also have a live album of his. He's not somebody I listen to particularly often, but I can almost guarantee you can find this for cheap. This particular copy I think I got in a thrift store that normally is a little bit expensive when it comes to vinyl, but I think they only wanted, I don't know, $2 or something for it. But it's got Take Me Home Country Roads. It also has Rocky Mountain High. Yeah, Rocky Mountain High is on here. So just for those two tracks, if you can get it for $1 or $2, go ahead. If you like John Denver. Next up, James Taylor. I included his Greatest Hits album here, but actually you'll find a lot of his stuff in the wild. I have 2 or 3 albums of his. And he's usually pretty consistently good. He is. But I have found that, for me at least, you know, I'll find a couple of tracks in each album I like, and then the rest of it I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever, I can take it or leave it. So that's why I'm recommending, if you can find it, the Greatest Hits album. I think I have this on CD too. Next up we have Running on Empty by Jackson Browne. Excellent album. Has, of course, the title track, Running on Empty, that again is from Forrest Gump. It was used in, again, one of his running scenes in the movie. But it has some other really cool songs on it. If you can find it, go ahead and get it. And actually, a lot of his albums are pretty good, especially his earlier stuff. Okay, we're getting near the end here. Huey Lewis and the News, Sports. This is a really, really great 80s album. It really is. It has I Want a New Drug on it, The Heart of Rock and Roll. And just, yeah, it's good. I got this one, I think, from a Goodwill. It's in great condition. It's a couple of bucks. Can't go wrong. Okay, these last 2 recommendations of sorts, these are going to be a little controversial. if there's one man that you associate with being king of the thrift store vinyl section, it's probably Herb Alpert. If not Lawrence Welk, then it's Herb Alpert. Rise. This is probably his best album in my opinion. I only have 2 Herb Alpert albums. This is one of them. This is from '79, I think. Yeah, this is from 1979. The title track was a pretty big hit, maybe even his biggest hit in terms of like the Billboard Top 100. I have found though that out of all of his albums, this is probably the most difficult to find in thrift stores, and certainly the most difficult to find in any kind of decent condition. But I included it because I have found it a couple of times. I think I originally had an older beat up copy. I found a better copy, which is this one, and I gave the old one to a friend. Again, find it for $1 or $2. It's really a pretty good album. Now that's not going to be as controversial as the second of the 2 Herb Alpert albums, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. This is a little bit of a notorious album. Anyone who's done any kind of thrifting, vinyl record thrifting at all has almost certainly come across this more times than they'd like to remember. I've probably found this dozens of times. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I find this in literally every other thrift store that I ever go into. But if you can find it for seriously cheap and in good condition, like this is in really nice condition apart from a tiny little bit of ring wear, tiny bit of spotting at the top, then it's actually not a bad album. I know I almost hate myself for saying that, but it's actually okay, you know. I mean, it's not the Moody Blues or anything like we first looked at, but it's really a quite reasonable album if you just want to put it on and sit back, listen to some instrumental music, but set the tunes that you'll recognize. It's okay, it really is. This is a mono copy. I don't know if that's particularly rarer than the stereo version. And again, I'm not claiming this is some amazing album and you should go out and panic by it. But what I am saying is that it's better than you might think. The album artwork is actually kind of iconic. I believe this lady on the front cover was like 3 months pregnant when this photo was taken. I think I read that somewhere. You know, of course she's covered in cream and very suggestive and whatnot. So again, if you can find this dirt cheap, and honestly, I would maybe not even pay $2 for it because it's so common. You can find it for like $1 or under. Find it in great condition. By all means, buy it. Give it a listen. You might be surprised. It's really, really not as bad as some people might have you think. Okay, guys. Well, that's the end of the records that I found just going through my collection, and I pulled out records that I thought, okay, I've seen that multiple times in a thrift store. So that's kind of the end of the ones that I found for now. And yeah, I have more videos coming. Thanks everyone who's subscribed and who's watched the videos that I've posted so far. Again, if you'd like to go ahead and subscribe, please, I'd love for you to do that. And I always welcome comments too. So, all right, thanks everyone. Bye bye.